Hello everyone. So today I have been asked by multiple people to talk about my interest and my career in horses and what I do with them. So I'm going to enjoy a cigar and get down the road, and I will tell you how I got into horses, what I do currently, how I grew up with them, what my mission in life is when it comes to horses. Stay tuned. All right, so where to begin? I don't want to get overly detailed and bore you guys with a whole bunch of details that don't really matter. You can always ask me a question if there's something that I don't go into enough, or if you want me to ever expand on. That's fine. So while you're commenting, make sure you like this video and you subscribe and share it. Have people subscribe that you know. Pass it around. I'm trying to build this channel as strong as we can. I got into horses, I think, when I was born. There's those people that just eat, sleep, live, breathe horses. They're just horse obsessed. That was me as a kid. I was doing competitive gymnastics. I was getting ready to go to the national level, I believe it was. And my coaches were getting very pushy, as in gymnastics they do. And I'm not a quitter on just about anything. I'm really not a quitter. But I also knew what my capabilities were at that point and what level I should compete at. And they were trying to push me past that. And around that time, I went ahead and quit, and my mom was able to get me into some riding lessons. And that would be once a week, and I'd be at school, and that would be all I could think about all day long was, oh my God, I have a riding lesson today. So I grew up taking lessons, getting to ride some, decent horses, saints, as we would label them, just putting up with a beginner, And we were able to buy our first horse, a little miniature horse, when I was in 3rd grade. And I was, in hog heaven. I mean, I really thought that I had just hit the lottery. I had my own horse. He was tiny, but he was about an inch oversized past what a registry wants them to be. Miniature horses are supposed to top out at, I think, 34 inches. If you're into minis now, you can correct me if you want. I think it's 34 inches. And he was like 35. So he was still small, but, he too big to be a show horse. So I ended up teaching him how to carry me, because I was still pretty small at the time, too. I only weighed about 50 pounds. And I rode him everywhere. I rode him in parades. I ended up giving lessons to other kids that I knew down the street. They would come and ride, and I would give them lessons. So I've been teaching a very long time. After we had him for a year or two, I can't remember the exact time, we ended up getting another horse from out west, a little cow pony that was, you talk about a saint. You could shoot off of him. I did parades on him. I swam with him. Oh, he was just a heart horse for me. It was amazing. That was magic, literal and figurative, my name. We had a couple other horses. We made it work on a small farm, and then we were able to move, and we grew our farm into about 20 horses. I had my competitive horse. I had 2 or 3 different horses that I was competing and working with, and then we had young ones. We had a couple retired ones. It was a really nice way to grow up. Originally, I began showing horses doing hunter pleasure. I would show Western pleasure for other people that wanted me to ride for them. I did a little driving every now and then. I really hit my own stride, though, when I got into eventing. So if you don't know what 3-day eventing is, it's what you see in the Olympics, and it consists of a dressage phase shows the conditioning that the horse has, that they're still careful with their feet. It kind of marries the two, jumping and discipline together. I really got into that when I got into Pony Club. So again, if you don't know what Pony Club is, it originates in Britain, and they are extremely detailed in the knowledge that they teach and impart on their members. It is a wonderful, organized way to go through the levels, and at this stage of my life, I can go to anybody who really knows horses, especially Pony Club at all, and I can say I went through the B level, and they're going to know exactly kind of what I can do as far as, at least at that point, hopefully I've grown since then, but the B level is an advanced level. There's only the HA and the A above it. And so I really enjoyed my time with Pony Club. I got to work with some great instructors. I traveled to go do nationals, was competing. That's where I started competing with my little Mustang that we had adopted wild. He was a bit of a game changer for us. That was the first Mustang that we'd adopted through the BLM. And while my mom had gotten pretty interested in what they'd call round pen training or natural horsemanship, and we had worked with a couple horses and trainers in that arena, so to speak. It wasn't until we got my Mustang, who I lovingly call Taco, T-A-K-O, up and running. And honestly, guys, I didn't want to ride him. He was really pretty to look at. He looked like a little miniature warm blood. He was stunning. He was absolutely gorgeous. But he was little. He was only 14 too, which, if you don't know horses are measured in what they call hands, and that's about 4 inches. So it would be 14 hands plus 2 inches. So his back, kind of came up to here on me, and I was used to riding tall horses, 16, 17. I rode a couple 18-hand horses, as 19 hands, but I always felt like, especially to compete in 3-day eventing, you need a tall horse because of the jumps. You have to have somebody with some legs on them so that they can make the time and the run and be able to jump well. So I started bringing him along and entering him in small shows, and he was so talented and jumped with beautiful form, just nice stayed with him. So they think a little differently than a normal domesticated horse. And it made me take myself to another level mentally. I was already a very good rider, and I was actually a pretty good trainer, but it took me mentally to another place. And I thought, this is what I want to share with people. I also had another horse who was very influential to me, and his name was JR. He came to me from a friend and fellow trainer that I respected very, very much. JR was known as the killer. I didn't know that when I got him. And again, not to bore you with a whole lot of details, but several people had tried to start him under saddle, and he just wasn't having it. It wasn't working out. He was so sensitive, and he just was not, didn't feel like he was ready to go down that road yet. So I saw him and some of his issues, and I said, I want to work with that horse. So long story short, I brought him to our farm, and I took my time with him. I let him really earn my trust, and vice versa. And I ended up riding him. I was able to teach lessons on him, took him cross-country schooling. He became a little rock star, and he was beautiful. He was really nice. He was breeding stock paint, if I recall correctly. He was about 15.3, for those of you that know horse sizes. So a little better size, and just beautiful, big, bald, white face. So he was another one that really made me rethink how I broke things down, how I approached each horse. The common thread with training principles is that while there is a way to train, whether it's classical dressage, which I'm very big into and based out of, whether it's natural horsemanship, any of these particular ways of training, there is a right way to do it. However, each trainer has to find what works not only for them, how do they use a tool and communicate that tool, but also each horse can be different. One training style, or let's say one training lesson, might work on 10 horses, and on the 11th horse they go, nope, piss off. Now you have to think outside the box and think about what works for that horse. Horses are very much like people in that case. I became what's called a centered riding instructor when I was about, I'm going to say 21, 22, somewhere in there. Centered riding is based off the biomechanics of the horse and the rider. So in the end, we do not want to get in the horse's way. We want to be able to ride and to work with a horse without interfering with their natural movement. And for me, it also helps keep a horse sound for a long time. Going back to my Mustang, he is now 34 years old. And I was able to hop on him last year with just a halter, bareback, and ride around the ring, or ride around the pasture. He was just fine. Still very happy, very healthy. So if they are brought along correctly, they're not started too young as 2-year-olds, especially by a bigger, heavier person, and ridden hard when they're young. I have a real problem with that. And you see that across the board in many disciplines. Horses being started way too young. So I have worked now as a centered riding instructor for, I'm going to say roughly 20 plus years. I have let my certification, my title, kind of go into remission because I'm not teaching full time. And when you keep your level as an instructor current, you have to be going and doing workshops and clinics, kind of your own con ed, if you will. And I can't do that right now. So I've got it on the side. So if you go to centeredriding.org and look for me, you might not see me on the instructor list. And I may take it back up because I really believe in what centered riding is and what it does for horses and riders. I like that it applies itself to all disciplines, and as someone who has worked with all disciplines, get out of the area in order to kind of find myself, kind of find my own 2 feet. I had been through that relationship, which at times was verbally abusive, and then before him I had dated a guy for about a year who was abusive. I think I talked about him and my other tales from the truck, why I got into trucking. So around the time of our separation, I was asked to be a featured clinician at the Southeastern Equine Expo in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I thought, oh, what an honor. There were quite a few big names, national and international names, teaching there. And I had been asked to teach there. It still blows me away. I was honored. When I was teaching there, I met a man named Dick Pieper, and he was a Hall of Famer in the reining and cutting horse worlds. Lived out in Oklahoma, and he kept watching how I taught and what I was having my students do, and he loved it. He really liked it. So we came up with a game plan. He said, I want you to come out, come live with me. He had an extra room. Come live with me and go to my clinics, my symposiums, my other expos that I'm doing, and I want you to teach alongside of me because I think what you're doing is really important. And that was a hard decision for me to allow, because that meant that I had to leave my kids temporarily. But I also did not want to upset their life, get them out of their daily routines. And their father was really interested in having them stay. He's a good dad, and he did not mind them staying. So we had talked about it. We kind of worked out the particulars, and off I moved all of my stuff to Oklahoma. Ultimately, I was there for about 9 months, but I worked my ass off. I would ride about 6 or 7 horses by noon. It's pretty hot out there in the mornings, actually during the day, so I would start early in the morning, get all the barn work done. Dick was getting older at this point, and he had a pretty bad fall a year or so before that, and so he was not able to move around as well. He could ride, but it was hard for him to do daily things. So my weight got pulled extra. I drove him around. I did a little extra around the house, and we traveled. And he had a really nice rig. It was a big rig, and it had a DOT number and everything, so I was still using my CDL. And we traveled literally all over America teaching. I've met some wonderful people because of that experience that I'm still friends with. Some amazing horse people. I got to ride some of the best horses in those industries. I got to meet the trainers that trained some of the best horses in the history of cutting and reining. It was a really amazing experience. It gave me a whole other realm, because Western pleasure is, sorry if you ride Western pleasure, not trying to dog on you too much here, but it's got a lot of issues and it's boring. Sorry, but if you ever want to get somewhere on a horse, don't get on a Western pleasure horse. And the cutters and the reiners are literally coming from real ranch work. Everything they do is based around how you'd work a cow, how you'd work on the ranch. I liked that because my 3-day eventing and dressage, my classical dressage, came from military drills, being able to have formation and have control. So both sides really pulled to me because there was an actual purpose. There's not many disciplines in horses that still have actual historical purpose, at the very least. But in these cases, in cutter started and want to keep bringing him along. The weather's really gotten in the way here recently, but he's beautiful. Love his owner. She's amazing. And I have quite a few riders that are discipline specific. One does 3-day eventing. One teaches on her own. I've got some dressage people. I've got one who's riding for pleasure. So it's kind of all across the board. And I like it that way. And I get to work with wonderful, beautiful horses. Great people. Some of the best people. And in fact, two of the people that I work with now have been students of mine for about 18 years now. Woo. 18 years, so maybe 17. Anyway, doesn't matter. Horses have always been a big mainstay. I could never go without having horses in my life, but I've definitely had to take pauses, as many people do. Horses are always there for us, and if you know how to listen, horses will teach you more about people than people will. They really are just wonderful creatures. They're very stoic, they're very thoughtful, and they're very honest and real. I'm very careful. Here's why I'm not putting a lot of horse content out, though. Horse people can be snooty, snobby, picky, narcissistic. I'd like to say that all horse people are amazing. There's some, but horse people are so opinionated. If they think they know what they're doing, it's rare when they want to hear it from somebody else. And there's some really good trainers on YouTube. There's some really shitty ones, you gotta beware. But there's some really good trainers, and I don't need to compete with them. I'm not doing this full time right now. I'm not trying to make it my life right now. But I would love to be able to share some of the lessons that I've done with students. Maybe in some cases show the progression.